Hi, this is Dr. Scott, and today we're going to get into a question. And let me bring up that on the screen so you can know what Mark was asking. So, what's your opinion on NESARA JASARA, when it might happen, and how is it tied to the end times? And I held on to this question from Mark for a little while because I pulled the resources over here to kind of bring them up here. It took me forever to find the stupid PowerPoint that I'd had with this kind of thing. And I'm going to do the PowerPoint a little quicker, but we'll keep and we'll answer this question too. It's going to take me a little time to unpack, but I'm going to show you a couple of things here. Number one, I've written a ton about this, okay? There are books on the screen here through, excuse me, the website. We are updating the website as we speak here. So there's a book here called, let's see here, I'll give you the right one here so you can see it. The Wedding of Jesus. This is, the invitation's been set. This talks about the different people that the Gospels talk about in a very unique way, so you know a little bit more about those two issues. Two other interesting ones, or two different ways of thinking about it, is the voices around the 444,000. This, in essence, and both of these are fiction books here. And so what happens in here is that the voices around the 144,000 are really from the beginning of the tribulation all the way to the mid portion of the tribulation. Okay? So it adds in false prophet, the 144,000, and actually adds in a group that you don't really know about, but it's called the Chosen with that too. Now, another book that people might be interested in as well is this one above called How He Lived the Undead Life. Now, in the character here, this one's a really hard one for me to write. The character is focusing on his life in the past, but what it really is from the fifth trumpet on, which will be later in the tribulation, the last year and a half or so, or about like 18 months before the end of the tribulation. And so it's a very unique time frame with this too. So I have a bunch of books, and then the lastly that a lot of people really like is Rapture, Could There Be More Than One? So that's another type of book. And guys, I'm not trying to get you to buy the books. I don't care if you don't want to do it. You want to do it, that's fine. It's just trying to give you some of these resources that are out there. Again, they're $10 a book, okay? Oh, $9.99 and $10. I don't know why I've priced them differently. That's just kind of dumb. But we're working on the website as we speak right now. So a couple things that are also on the website I think is very helpful for you. This is for free. You can donate if you feel like it with this too. Is two tribulation posters, and I think this is very helpful. I had Dr. Jeff Swanson and I did this one together. There is another one a little bit lower down. It's called Hope in the Last Days. Okay, and this one here, you can see it's a little brighter kind of one too. So those are two possibilities if you want free resources, or you want to have resources that are buy some books. Okay, so again, you don't have to do that, but that's just one area. I want to kind of bring up on the stage this question. Now, it's a little hard for you to read, so I'm going to try to make it easier. I'm going to read it out loud. So, I apologize. I can't make it any different because the screen doesn't let me. Okay, so not sure how a church that doesn't keep the commandments or Sabbaths will be escaping the tribulation. Sounds like deception. And I was like, you got to be kidding me here. And I kind of quote this. I said, number one, you might want to look at a couple of these. Barna survey indicated less than 9% of the people calling themselves Christians, not mainline denominations, but evangelical churches. And the survey took about 2,500 members and a relatively huge group in there. And they basically asked different questions like, do you believe that Jesus was a virgin birth? He died, rose again. The word is inspired by the Holy Spirit, on and on like this. Okay, there's like 13 to 15 different statements that the Bible says, and only 9% of the people in these evangelical churches believe that. And I'm gonna bring this off the screen because I know it's hard for you to see, so apologize for that. Now, and then I ask this one question too, can we wash the sin from ourselves forever? I mean, this is a very big conversation that we talk about here. So, um, and many people think that you have to work out your salvation, meaning you have to keep stamping on your sin before Jesus will accept you. And I just kind of go, guys, you really don't understand what the heck we're talking about here. Why is this, very, very important in the way that Scripture puts this? Okay. And so I want to kind of walk through, end time issues here and present it a little bit better so that you understand a little bit more about what we're in the middle of. Now, I did a longer point of this, and it's a 4-part series, so I'm going to cut it down a hair, okay? And it's called, exactly here on the screen, the post-NESARA timeline, okay? So I'm going to do a much more quicker viewpoint of this particular thing. Okay, so when we look at January 2017, why the heck am I using that kind of date? It's because that's when Trump got into office, okay? So most of the sickos here, the anti-cabal, deploy, almost all of them deploy a coup to take out the U.S. corporation with this too. And then Trump was asked to serve. Then we actually have the Vegas false flag, which is in October 1st of 2017. And you can spend a lot of time, you can go down the rabbit hole, and it's an amazing rabbit hole to go down, but it is a powerful one for you to realize that Trump saved the Prince of Saudi Arabia, and that Prince of Saudi Arabia helped to do the censorship of Trump and frankly of us so that many people would actually wake up. And you go, well, that's just really sick. Why would he do that? Because people needed to wake up. They needed to see that their government was not what you think it is, in essence, okay? Now, in the same basic time frame and a little bit after, he comes up with Executive Order 13818, which is a bankrupting of the cabal. It's mirrored because any executive order better have some constitutional means to it. And that's in the 14th Amendment under the 4th section. So this is, and they must have known about this pre-January of 2017. Because if you listen to Kash Patel in his book, Government Gangsters, they obviously were putting a plan in place, and they actually had taken out General Flynn at the same time frame. So, holy cow, guys, they knew this was coming. So what did they know exactly is coming? That's going to be a fascinating question that we'll answer down the road. A little bit later, he comes up with the election fraud conversation as well. And again, those are both in the 14th Amendment. So that's where the Saudi Arabia prince gives the marching orders here. And this is all that prep point of the NESARA inclusion with that too. So this is when, if you listen to Derek Johnson, a good friend of mine, he's a good guy. He's talked a lot about this, and a few other people have kind of picked up the reins. You also have devolution with Patriot Patel. One time I call it Kash Patel. I'm sorry. This Patriot Patel, who went and had long conversation about devolution series. You can see that on Rumble as well with that too. Now, he went to each one of the nations and talked to them. And it's funny because I was thinking about this at the same time. I was just thinking about this the other day, not really putting this together, but think about who he went to in that first stage. Trump went to, he goes to India, he goes to China, and has an incredible reception. Later on, he talks to Russia, a bit, and they were doing the Russia hoax at that same time frame, but he talks to the BRICS nations in essence. Okay, so that tells you a little bit more about NESARA and BRICS are the same. Now, when Trump talks about BRICS is not going to take over the dollar, he's giving you a code about something more than you think is coming. The dominance of the old systems are not going to be screwing up us. Okay, so you have to understand that's not coming about with that too. Okay, now Obama sets up his deep state to try to create the Great Reset, and that's why it's around 2020 with that too. So they start the setup with putting in the CARES Acts. And those are all the COVID kind of acts. That's why people don't understand COVID had way more to do with the finances than anything else you ever imagined with that too. So it was the death timings, it was the initialization, easy for me to say, of the Fed with that too, or that death. So then we get into the COVID scams. We have the summer, the summer of love, the summer riots, where it's mostly burning and a whole building's burning right behind, the idiot CNN reporter with that too, right? It leads in to Joe Biden taking office with that too. And he was given to the people, unfortunately, not our people, but he was given to the people as, frankly, a moron in waiting with that too. Just kind of told you a lot about it. Then they added huge amounts of voter and election fraud, and it had to be publicly seen with that too. And here's the funny thing that is really a sad situation. It's probably higher than this. The Great Reset dies in the same time frame, and they steal as many as $7 to $12 trillion in that time frame. I think it's even now, today, I think it's probably closer to 20 trillion. But you could pick any number you feel more comfortable with that too. And then the corporation dissolves or devolves at that point, not dissolves, but devolves out of there. And that's the devolution stuff that you can look at. Okay. The next phase here is the fake takeover of that shadow government. So Trump had to be doing something different with that too. So we have a devolution of the government, that we had to leave the governmental standards, and we had to let them do it. Now, right after that, there is an arrest time frame of Biden. Fascinating kind of circumstance. He has a walking boot on, and it's very easy to understand that's where he was arrested. Now, the reality is he was arrested long before that, but it was another calm for you. Okay, actors are told what to do, and then these idiots are allowed to be set up. But Trump, they were not allowed to mess with the emergency orders that Trump actually set up. And then the 17th letter actually says who has the nuclear football. Now realize the president, one of the biggest things the president has is the nuclear football. And he just has a little tiny button he thinks he can push. He couldn't push anything. So then we also have a fake break-in, and this is the January 6th issue, which is a type of Watergate, which is a type of way that they have an insurrection, which gets us back into the conversation of the 14th Amendment. You go read it. It talks all about insurrection. And see, they want to pin this upon Trump, and the reality is it was all them doing it. It led us into implication of idiot Nancy or drunk Nancy. So she actually, and if you look at some of the original videos, she definitely was arrested right around this time frame. Now, there's a complicity between the Dems and the Republicans. I mean, they were doing something together to cover up so much that was going on. And then we had the Capitol shutdown, right? So this is a very quick kind of time frame here. Moves in to a fake inauguration. I mean, you just have to spend a little time on this. And there was a massive fake inauguration in the timing, in what they did, and how they did it all the way through and through. And you have to understand, all of them are guilty. They became guilty at this moment in time with that. Okay, now we have the fake administration, and again, we're trying to do this not super slow here, but I just want to give you some of this. Biden sets up these executive orders that start messing with the economy. And as we look at this in a retrospect, one of the things we realized, it created more inflation while they were spending like drunken sailors with that too. So they were trying to bring on the Great Reset, and yet it was already dead before it came out of the proverbial cradle. So I don't mean to be rude about that, but that's the best way to put it. This is when we had military operations of taking out the dumps. This is one of the most major reasons why it took so long for this thing to come. At one point in time in August of 22, 10 nukes were thought to have been found, and then there was a statement there might have been 14. So they had to kind of restart the military operation to kind of do this. They continue to push false flags. We have so many levels of false flags. And the first one was the Ukrainian war, which is dealing with some of the Russia kind of stuff. This is the modern Nazis of the time frame. They normalized PEDOs over families, and Trump is killing that as we speak with that too. They began also to put in their COVID narrative and the vaccine lies with that kind of thing too. And you saw a lot of businesses failing, inflation rising, and they tried to throw in CBDCs, right? So then we get to the place at some point or another. I mean, we're going to get to this place of NESARA with related to the EBS. Now, the EBS is a very interesting time frame. And people go, well, how come Trump hasn't talked about this? It's because it's one of the most secret portions of the situation. Now, I'm going to move forward here because we're in February of 2025. I would love it to be done. I believe it's going to be done soon enough here, but let's move past it just a hair. Now, what I believe after the EBS, you got, we're going to look a little bit about some issues. Sorry, I'm just getting over being sick, but some issues from an EBS all the way to the tribulation with that too. There's going to be a chaos that you don't realize has to occur. Many people think it's just like that, some people have really badly tried to say that they believe that we're in the millennial reign. That is so stupid, it's not even funny. It's not biblical, and it's stupid thinking, right? The reality is there has to be massive shakeup. And the government is already going through that with Doge. I didn't even realize it when I wrote this thing, but that is part of that, okay? The financial markets have to be full-on rebuilt. They are in so much chaos and so much debt, there's no way for them to survive with this. And then people have to actually relearn some of these historical issues. What might that be? Like the Titanic. What was that about? What was World War I about? What was Vietnam really about? Vietnam was much more about currency than you ever know. It was their way of stealing from a nation. That's what Iraq is all about. That's why the currencies of Iraq and Vietnam are so powerful that people talk about them in the currency areas, but it's because we've actually had wars there. Every time we have war in a place, it's all about the currency, and people don't fully understand that. These are all banker wars in essence. But we actually have to move into a constitutional law. And I've talked about that with our guy, Roger, who comes on and talks a lot about that. We have to see a rebuilding of the nations. This is kind of the DrScottYoung part. There's a rebuilding that's going to happen during this time frame. And I believe there is going to be a massive explosion of the church. When truth comes out and the lie is revealed, you're going to ask the question, and your friends and family members are going to ask the question, what is truth? As Pontius Pilate asked Jesus when he was at the late stage of his life into almost being crucified, he said, what is veritas? That's a type of word of truth. But really what veritas comes, that we have pulled that word over and it goes into Latin and then it goes into the English, is verification. Yeah, truth isn't what you think it is because you want it to be your opinion and you need me to approve you because it's your opinion. That's not truth, that's an opinion. Um, but Veritas is going to be a powerful method of conversation that we're going to see here. And I believe there's going to be a massive preaching the gospel throughout a time frame. And this could be a several years. It's not going to happen like overnight, but it's going to be several years so you understand this a little bit more. Now, there's a couple, three last phases that have to happen before the tribulation starts. You see, people talk to me all the time. Well, the tribulation started. Well, we're in the second, we're in the second seal, or we're in the third trumpet, or they pick things, and I'm going. If you think we're in the third trumpet, where's the first trumpet? If you think we're in the third seal, where is the first seal? And I'll tell you that one in a second. The Ezekiel 38 and 39 war is one of the more interesting wars out there. This will be a war where the Russians, yes, the Russians, with a whole bunch of nations who are Muslim in nature, will come down and get jiggy on the Jews. And in the eastern mountains, there will be something that will happen to them like a crazy weapon that goes off, and it's really more of a weapon of God. It confuses the enemy. It only other happens in 2 Chronicles 20, where you see a confusion weapon where they fight each other. That will happen again at that time frame and terrify anyone who sees it. But what's so fascinating about Ezekiel 38 is that it says that they come into a city with unwalled city. Excuse me, I said that wrong. Think about that for a second. NESARA is about having peace between nations. And people are going to think, well, is that the peace like, the peace in the tribulation? No. You'll say peace and safety, and then the end comes. That's what Matthew 24 tells us over and over again. Well, I've never been able to solve this until I have seen some of the ways that we will see right now in the very near future. We're going to see some of this time frame coming up right here. Okay? And then we're going to see the first seal is the Antichrist. That's always the tribulation starter. Okay? You can't get away with any other things. That's why I kind of say, listen, only Jesus is allowed to introduce the Antichrist. Revelation 6:2. You cannot do it any other way. The cabal doesn't get to do it. No one ever gets to do it. Only Jesus the Christ has the ability to open the seals. And so once you understand that point, you have to calm down. Stop worrying about and looking toward this. This is the time frame that we're about ready to be entering into. And we're actually sort of there in some ways. We're seeing a lot of the shakeup, but we haven't seen the full shakeup until we see that EBS issue, right? So we're almost there, guys. I promise you it's coming. But, one of the things that I just keep saying to you is this. You're worried about situations and it hasn't come because you're struggling through your life. I understand. And you feel like this is the worst suffering you've ever seen. It probably is. But I'm telling you, if you spend any time in any of the books, and including one of the books too, one of my favorite and most difficult books I ever wrote was How He Lived the Undead Life. I'm telling you, you have never experienced a time frame that will come in the tribulation. You'll never have imagined it. It's 4 or 5 times worse than anything we've gone through before or since. So I hope that gives you an idea to understand this question. So back to Mark's question. What's your opinion on NESARA happening? Well, it's soon. It's coming. Okay, and you're going to see it. How is it tied? I believe the biggest part of the tie is this. It's that peace phase that happens and sets up Israel and sets up the world to be ready for the Antichrist. Thanks so much.